Hello, I'm Keith Spera from NOLA.com and the Times-Picayune. Welcome to Let's Talk. If you've attended a Saints game in the Superdome, you're familiar with the godlike voice that booms over the PA system, announcing touchdowns, first downs, and field goals. That is not, in fact, the voice of God, but the voice of my guest today, Mark Romig. In addition to his duties as the Superdome announcer, he is also the Senior Vice President and Chief Marketing Officer at New Orleans & Company, helping to sell the city to the world. Mark, welcome to Let's Talk.
It's so good to be here, Keith.
So let's start off. Give me the call, the thing that all Saints fans want to hear on the Superdome as often as possible during the game.
Touchdown, Saints!
That's the one. That's the one. Now, you've been doing this for 11 years, been the announcer during games. Has that evolved over the years, or is that pretty much how you started doing that particular call?
It is copied from my dad, Jerry, who did this for 44 years. So I built on what the fans were used to hearing. And it was interesting when the opportunity came and Dad was set to retire and the Saints asked me to pick up where he was going to leave off. My mom said to me, "Now, Mark, you better sound like your father." And Dad turned to me and said, "Son, sound like yourself." Well, I try to sound like my dad as much as I can because, you know, he set the standard, so to speak. There have been a few other calls that we have created over the last several years, like the third down call. That's something that we established to try to really give it to the offense of the other team when we could. But other than that, it's just building on what Dad started, and as we were speaking earlier, he did this for 44 years. And I think the Saints organization wanted to not change too much of that dynamic that was in the stadium for so long. So many fans had gotten used to hearing Dad's first down Saints and touchdown. So fortunately, we share a deviated septum, and so we sound a little bit alike.
Is that the key? A deviated septum? Huh?
That's what we've always said, at least. I mean, that nasal tone.
Well, and you get to say touchdown Saints a lot more frequently than your dad did in some of those lean years.
In the lean years, yes. There was very few of those, and interesting, you know, it was Dad's passion. I mean, if he could do nothing else, he wanted to be at a Saints game announcing. And then as things changed, basically when Mr. Benson came on board and he started really investing in some talent like he did, that's not to speak ill against Mr. Meekham, but, you know, times changed and things changed and coaches changed and they started winning. It became that much more fun for Dad and for Mom, because Mom would go with Dad to every game.
Okay.
And then, of course, we all remember the Super Bowl year. That was a magical year. And having Dad being able to go to Miami and sit in the stands with Mom and be part of that victory is something that he just cherished for so many years.
Did you aspire to take over the job as Superdome announcer? I mean, is that something you wanted to do?
No, that's a very good question. I never thought I'd be sitting in that chair. Of course, you always think Dad's going to be there forever. There's no need for me to even be thinking about it. I enjoyed the games. Like a lot of people in those early days and early years, you could leave in the third quarter because you wanted to beat the traffic. And but as Dad became up in age, so he started to think through this about how much more he was going to be able to do, and then within probably about 6 months prior to his retirement or pulling away from the microphone, that's when we started discussing this with the Saints organization, what might be good for the Dome and what the fans would like. And then it was like I woke up to be the Saints announcer. It's quite a gift. I did not expect it, though. It was not something, because I had season tickets, still do, because I enjoyed sitting in the stadium. I can't do certain things now that I used to do as a season ticket holder, like have a beer now and then, something like that. But having the seat where we have it now, watching the game and being part of the activity, it's a blast.
So, well, before you called your first game, I mean, big time nervous? Not at all?
Very nervous.
Very nervous.
Still to this very day, I'll get butterflies before that first kickoff, because I pick up once the game begins. I'm the play-by-play. There is another voice you hear. This is David Manning. His nickname is Storm. Storm does the announcing of the teams coming out. He'll do the commercials you hear. And so there are two of us working in tandem, but you hear me play by play. And as the first kickoff occurs to start the game, I take that deep breath and you just go with it. And then it goes back, it goes pretty quickly.
Yeah.
You know, the NFL has certain rules about when you can speak and when you can't. And so once you get into the rhythm, it just happens.
You're in the moment. You got to roll with it. I mean, it's unfolding in front of you. You're literally building the track in front of the train as you're going along.
And you need to make sure that you're putting enough information out in the stadium so that if that person's not at his or her seat, they may be in the concourse, they're not watching the play, they're hearing, okay, what happened with that down? What happened with that pass? And then, of course, leading up to hopefully a field goal or a touchdown or an interception, those are those magical moments. Now, the person that really makes me smart is my sister, Mary Beth.
Uh-huh.
She's the spotter.
So she's with binoculars there,
game.
right? Yep.
She has literally, as I try to do, memorized player positions, numbers, so forth, names, some difficult names sometimes to pronounce, things like that. And she's speaking in a rapid succession in my ear. And I'm watching the game as well, so it's like the data's coming in, we can say what happened, and then we move on to the next play.
So you've got an offensive spotter and a defensive spotter? Or
no,
just...
Mary Beth picks up both roles.
Okay. So it's you and her working in tandem, basically.
And then, interesting enough, my brother Jay, who's full-time with the Saints, he's been there some 47 years, he operates the clock, and he sits up on a row behind me. And he knows the game as good as anyone, as well as anyone, and I hear him also kind of saying what happened in the play. So it takes a team to make sure that the fans hear the right thing. But it's a pleasure because I've just created, by telling you that, it becomes a family day in the house controls booth. My sister Mary Beth's there, Jay's there, and it's very important in the family. As my mom says, there are two seasons. There's Saint season and waiting for Saint season.
Have you, obviously you've had to correct yourself, I guess, various times you've said things that were incorrect and take back.
I say check that. If I give the wrong yardage or very rarely do I step over the referee, but I try to avoid that. Mm-hmm. If it looked like a first down, and maybe there were 2 or 3 occasions where I just called it the first down and it wasn't, and I'll just honestly say check that call. It's third down, or the yardage is off 1 or 2 yards, things like that. But there's a great team in the house controls booth. There's the stats people, there are people working the sound. It's a well-oiled machine for sure.
Have you ever let a bad word slip?
No, I knock on you. This wood? No.
I think it's wood. Yeah, sure.
Hasn't happened yet. In fact, there's the switch on the microphone. My thumb has to come off of it so it doesn't go across. But there'll be times where my thumb comes off that switch, and I want to say something, but again, I catch myself. That errant flag penalty or whatever, I try to just I internalize it for sure.
The no call, for instance, you may have wanted to say something, yes. Right. Because you're a fan. I mean, you're a fan. You're a diehard fan.
It's amazing, too, because I'll run, at halftime is the first time I can get up from the seat to go, clean up, wash my hands or whatever, and I'll see my face is as red as can be, and I'm thinking, I should not take my blood pressure right now. You just get into the game. It's just so much fun to be there. And then, you come back for the next game and do it all over again. Well,
and you're, as the announcer for those plays, I mean, you're allowed to have some enthusiasm. I mean, you're an advocate for the home team.
The home team is allowed to stretch certain calls. Like I would never do first down Vikings, when we're playing in Minnesota, or touchdown. So we're allowed to do that with that home team. That's the advantage because the Vikings will do it in their stadium. So it's quid pro quo, and so to speak. With it's equal enthusiasm. For the other team when you're playing against them. Interesting enough, the Saints were able to have me go to Tottenham in England when we played the Vikings.
Right.
And I was the hometown announcer, the home side announcer. So I was able to do those third downs and move them chains. And we taught the British fan all sorts of new sayings. Move them chains. They don't move them chains in soccer, or as they call football. And it was a lot of fun to do that.
They probably didn't even know what dem was.
Dem, that's right. It's a new word over there now. Move dem chains.
Did you announce during COVID, during the pandemic, did you announce games in an empty stadium at any point?
I think the very first game we did that year, 2020, they allowed, if I remember correctly, just several hundred people, and mainly it was staff and recruits.
Okay.
On either side. and it changed the sound of the dome tremendously.
Well, that's what I was going to say. It had to be bizarre. I mean,
it was, because you were speaking over into a mask. They brought the speakers down to the field. They wanted to ensure that there was hardly anybody on the sideline. I mean, like everyone else, the NFL was kind of learning as they went, because we didn't know what to expect with this thing. And gradually through to the next season, things got better, and they allowed more people into the stadium. But it was unusual.
Well, yeah, because I would imagine. I mean, and you're in an enclosed booth, right? You're not hearing
the glass,
ambient noise.
The window slides, and there is a bit of it that is open, because the gentleman running the sound and keeping the volume touch has to hear what the fans are hearing. So there is some feedback, and you just you play with that.
Well, as I say, I mean, it has to be bizarre to hear your own voice booming over a PA system that size in that kind of room. I mean, was that, because I know I spoke at the St. Louis Cathedral one time, and when I got on the mic, it threw me off to hear my voice amplified in that kind of space. So the dome has got to be just really weird to get used to.
It is.
Hearing your voice.
I think particularly the first time that I made that first announcement, we were playing Atlanta that game in September of 2013 when I became the announcer at the first game of that season. It startled me just a bit. Now, I had gone in the week before, and they wanted to run me through the ropes, and I was practicing, but that was practicing to an empty stadium, so it sounded a lot different. You need folks in that stadium for the sound to be as rich as it is.
Sure, otherwise it's just bouncing off the empty seats.
And over the years they have adapted and upgraded the sound system. I went into the dome earlier this year for another rehearsal for the season that we're in now, and the dome is spectacular. I mean, there's a lot more work to be done, but what they have done, the atriums they've created, the sound system sounds fantastic. Again, the focus is on the fans and the experience that they have, and between the Saints and the Superdome folks, they're really making sure that the fans have a great experience.
Well, it's crazy. I mean, seeing these billion-dollar or multi-billion-dollar stadiums that have been built, the fact that they've been able to adapt the dome. The dome is what, 50 years old now. That thing is still competitive. I don't know if that's the right word, or still conducive to a good NFL game experience.
It's a fantastic asset. In fact, I saw a video that Nashville put out about their new stadium for the Titans. And obviously it's very sleek and modern on the outside, but they showed an interior kind of animation, and it to me, the Superdome matches it easily.
To this day, still.
And what they're doing now to prepare for the 2025 Super Bowl is they're truly ensuring that the experience, not only watching the game, but what happens in the concourses and around, is equal or better than any other stadium. So it's exciting. It's exciting. And of course, game day in New Orleans is one of the best experiences you can have with Champions Square, the Dome. We like to promote the fact that you can make it a great weekend, do a staycation. A lot of the fans come in from that I-10 corridor or just north of the city, from Mississippi and other parts of Louisiana, and they truly make it a weekend.
Do you? What time do you actually get to the Dome on game days? When do you?
8 o'clock. So say the game's at noon.
Yeah.
The team in the house controls is asked to report about 4 hours before. Now what happens is that they literally take the script of the game. Everything is scripted out, from the flag unfurling to the national anthem to the cheer crew. All of it's practiced before, because the Saints organization wants you as the fan to see a flawless presentation. And so everything is walked through, making sure the logos are done well. You know, you've got a number of corporate sponsors that have helped pull this together. They want to be represented correctly, and so all that's done. Now, I think they want the entire team there, because of course I don't speak until the game begins, and so my practice is making sure I understand who's playing in what position, and what the starting lineup should look like, making sure pronunciations are correct. Several times the other team's representative will come over and walk me through the roster, ensuring that I'm saying it correctly. And so that's really my prep. And I'll usually get those rosters. Mary Beth and I will get the rosters probably by Thursday before the game, and so we can start looking at it and understanding it. Now, preseason is different than regular season because they're going to throw a lot of players in there as they're trying to winnow down the team.
Sure.
So that makes it that much more challenging, but that much more fun too.
So you've got a couple of days of homework before a game. I mean, you got 2 or 3 days worth of homework to really prep on it.
We get that roster and then we go at it. Beth and I just make sure that the pronunciation is correct because that, again, we have to and want to respect our team members as well as the opposing team members in saying it correctly. And then it happens, and then we do it all over again.
So yeah, it's got to be a bummer if you're an NFL player. You make it to the NFL and you hear your name mispronounced on the PA system. It's like, I'm at the NFL. I got this level. I still can't say my name.
There have been occasions where a phone call will come up to the house controls booth and say, adjust that slightly, but they give us the phonetics. They try to make sure that we understand that.
You got it all.
And practice hopefully makes perfect.
Right. And like we talked about earlier, your dad did it for 44 years there, and he did it at Tulane Stadium prior to.
He started at Tulane Stadium doing Green Wave games, and then in the third year of the Saints, going into their third season, they were looking for an announcer to replace who they had the year before. And they said, Jerry, you do Tulane on Saturday night. Would you come back and do the Saints on Sunday? And he was like, of course.
And this is when they still played at
Tulane Stadium.
Yeah. So he initiated the role at the Dome. He was the guy when they started playing in the Dome.
He went into the Dome as that Saints announcer and stayed all the way through the preseason of 2013. 446 consecutive games. Dad never missed a game.
Man.
That is amazing. Even when the Saints had to play away for Katrina, their home games, the Saints took Dad with them so that they could have that home field advantage or announcing feel.
And he did this. He was in his career as the program director at WDSU.
He started. Well, Dad used to write for the State's Item.
Way back.
High school football, high school sports, and then picked up a job at WDSU in the 50s. Worked his way up to become vice president of programming. He did editorials on television, and then from there. He moved over to the Archdiocese, where he worked with Archbishop Hannon to run the Horizons program, a fundraising program to build senior homes. Then he worked with the Archbishop to create WLAE-TV, and so he was general manager of WLAE-TV for several years. He left the Archdiocese and went to work for Hotel Dieu Hospital, where all of my brothers and sisters were born, including Dad was born there and Mom, and so that was something special for him to do. Doing development and communications. The state buys Hotel Dieu Hospital, turns it into University Hospital, which was located right there off of Gravier and Galvez, and did that until, he started there and went until the early 2000s. And then he and I had the chance to work together. I was at Peter Mayer, Advertising and Public Relations, and he came on board to be of counsel, a senior PR executive. And so we had the joy of working together through Katrina. And then when I left in 2008 to go work with a client, Hospital Corp, Dad stayed for a year or two more, and then he said, you know what, I'm going to focus on the Saints and spend more time with Mom, and that's where he ended. His last full-time job was doing that, but he also had a show in WLAE for many years, a call-in show, a medical call-in show, which he loved doing as well.
So we're continuing the tradition here.
Well, thank you. That's a good point. That's a good point. He was with us until 2015. So
passed away. Okay, yeah. So he did it. He was how old?
He was 86 when he passed away. I think he stayed through until he was 83. Announcing
with the Saints. He was still announcing
the
it like
Saints.
83.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. So you got a couple decades.
I figure if I could do 446 consecutive games or that many games, I'll be 110 years old when I'm finished. But something tells me Dad set the record that won't be broken.
Well, hopefully in that time span we'll see another couple Super Bowls. So happen. You talk about you have your other job, your day job with New Orleans and Company, the agency that, as I said in the intro, markets the city to the world. What are the challenges right now in marketing New Orleans, in making it an attractive place for conventions and visitors? I mean, because obviously the city makes a lot of headlines for the wrong reasons sometimes. So I mean, what are the challenges right now to try to sell the city to folks?
Well, I guess you could categorize those into a couple of buckets, or maybe more than a couple of buckets. One would be, let's look at the infrastructure of the delivery of good service. We're still in a position of trying to gain more employees and more members of the team so that we can produce that great experience. New Orleans has always been known to leave people with great memories. Some 60 or 65% of the visitors that are here are regular visitors. They had been here before, so they're coming back, which speaks very highly of the product. But through COVID, we lost a lot of employees. A lot of people got out of the job business about being in hospitality. They left town, and so we're still trying to rebuild. And you've probably seen that in some restaurants, for instance, are not open as they were before.
Right.
Early days of COVID, where in hotels that were still operating, you had general managers doing every type of job possible because, again, people weren't coming back to the job market. So there's still a need there. It's getting better. And I think with all the job fests that we do and outreach to people to say, hey, there are jobs available. You can be hired on the spot.
Yeah.
You can make a career out of this. I came out of the hotel, restaurant, tourism program at UNO, and there are people who see that this could be a career for them, and because there are ways to work your way through. So that's one aspect. I would say our infrastructure is getting better. We're still probably the most walkable city in the nation as it relates to, you come to New Orleans and it's really easy to manage.
Yeah.
French Quarter, Riverfront, the downtown sports district, Garden District, you've got the streetcar line connecting everything.
So one of the reasons Essence Festival keeps coming back, because you can
or
have
why we have Super
Superdome and walk
Bowls.
to and why we have Super Bowls.
So this will be our
exactly.
11th Super Bowl. We keep competing well against much larger cities because we're a fan favorite in many aspects. We have the urban issues that a lot of cities have. When we speak to visitors about their experience, and the conversation might get into crime, homelessness, litter, what you hear is, we have the same issue at our place. It's an understanding. It doesn't make it better, and it doesn't mean that we got to stop trying to fix it. There are a lot of efforts to tackle it and to make it better. And I think the fact that we're at the table and we're trying to find those solutions, but we still have to react to that. We still get those questions. And
yeah, will I be safe if I come to New
exactly.
Orleans?
And of course,
those kind of questions,
we want people to feel like we've got their back. And there are things happening right now that I know that are happening that is going to make our city much better. Some things you just don't talk about because you don't want to tip it off to the bad guys. But I think all in all, we're in the same pot that a lot of cities are in right now, and we're working our way through it. COVID dealt everyone that blow that changed everything.
Sure.
Meetings and conventions, people are still trying to figure out, back then, do we still have meetings? Do we still come together? Do we have to do these hybrid meetings? Do we meet at all? And so cities fell out of that planning cycle. Now we're trying to get back in. This year hasn't been as good as we have liked it as far as groups and conventions, but we see the tide turning as we get into 2024 and beyond.
So this is still kind of COVID fallout. I mean,
we still have a little bit of a COVID hangover, if I may use that. And again, it helped us kind of think differently. We're very, I know people are so tired of using the word resilient, but if there's any city in America that's resilient, it's us. And I think we found ways to build back better, and that's what we will continue doing. And so we go at it with a positive approach. You could certainly be negative all day if you wanted to, but we can't stop marketing the city. If we turn that spigot off, I think that's not a good outcome. Yeah. So we continue to talk about the good things. We continue to put our money against initiatives that help, ameliorate the homelessness, find solutions there, find more opportunities to provide safety in the French Quarter. The French Quarter is the breadbasket of Louisiana. Sure. As that goes, so goes the rest of the state, as I've always felt, with the spending that could happen in the French Quarter, the good, positive spending. So it's an asset that we have to take care of. And so we're at the table ensuring that we can do our part. And we just keep doing it. We've got a great team at New Orleans & Company. It's been rated one of the best CVBs, Convention Visitor Bureaus, in the nation. And we have a great leader now, Walt Leger, who was Speaker Pro Tem of the state legislature for many years. But more than that, he's from the area. He believes in the area. He has his kids are here. He wants to make this work, and he's an attorney by trade and very much into solutions. And he certainly was a promoter and a supporter of the tourism industry while he was in the legislature. And he brings so much energy to the table. And he picks up well where Stephen Perry left off. Stephen was our CEO from 20 plus years and really helped develop the systems that are in place now to help us continue to be successful. So it's an exciting place to be.
Amen. We've got a minute left here. You talked about the good team at New Orleans Company in the early days of this Saints season. A minute left. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling good. I'm feeling good.
You say it every year. Are you?
Of course.
Is it the eternal optimism of the Saints fan?
There's positivity only here. The Saints mean so much to this community.
Yeah.
I mean, no matter what neighborhood you live in, where you come from, where you work, what you look like, what you believe, it's Saints season, and it's just something that pulls everybody together. When you're in that dome, everyone is related. Even the people sitting on the other side of the field. We don't bear them any ill will.
Sure,
no. It's New Orleans.
We need them. We need somebody to beat.
Right. We need them spending money here. We're so happy that they're here to spend money.
Well, all right. So you're, again, optimistic this season. Looks good. You're feeling good.
Feeling good.
All right.
Feeling very positive.
I am hopeful that you get to say touchdown Saints a whole heck of a lot this year.
I want to say it often. First down Saints, touchdown Saints, it's good. And then third down calls for the other team a lot.
Amen. Make it happen.
Thank you,
Mark,
Keith.
this has been a pleasure, man. Good luck with the Saints season, and we'll talk down the road.
All right. Thank you very much, Keith.
Thank you to everyone for watching. I'm Keith Spera. This has been Let's Talk.